Everyone's talking about AI, but who's actually implementing it? I'm Jenna Ahern, the CEO of Guardian Owl Digital, a search engine marketing firm rooted in integrity and transparency in the digital age. AI and marketing are at a crossroads, and the technology is moving faster than most business leaders can keep up with. That's why we created Go AI, a podcast series where we interview leaders in various industries about all things artificial intelligence. With each guest, my co-host Connor Rafferty and I will explore the applications that this rapidly evolving technology has for business leaders and their industries. Let's go AI. I'm thrilled to welcome our next podcast guest, Ellie Puckett. She is the CEO of Resonate Recordings. Ellie, thank you for being on the show. Tell us a little about you and Resonate.
Thanks. So Resonate Recordings is a podcast production company. We help organizations and thought leaders make content that matters and that makes an impact through podcasting. And so my story is that my background was in technology startups, and I had been seeing a lot of companies kind of come and go and on the startup roller coaster. And somewhere along that journey for me, I realized that I actually always set out to be an entrepreneur. And I hadn't had the idea of the company to start yet. And so I got really into acquisitions and this idea of buying a business. And on the journey to buying a business, I started a podcast. And so when I started that podcast, it was really just a way for me to talk about business acquisition and entrepreneurship and how we make profitable, scalable, sustainable businesses rather than just like technology startups that need endless amounts of angel funding and venture funding. And so that was kind of my purpose and my passion. I did not know at the time that it would lead me to a podcast production company that I would later buy. So it's been a journey, but podcasting for me really made a lot of sense. My husband did video production. I had a podcast. And one of the things that really drew me to this medium was its authenticity and its natural ability to like bring people together and to educate. And in my years of being a startup coach and around that world, I loved helping people bring their ideas to life and allowing them to share their mission with the world. And podcasting still lets me do that. So I get to help people all day, every day, bring their missions to the world.
Well, first of all, I'm so happy that you're here. And I'm also very grateful because Resonate Recordings is also helping us bring our dream to life. We've wanted to do a podcast around AI for a while. And, it really wasn't until ChatGPT last year where it became consumer facing, where people started talking about it. And it really made business owners start to ask these questions around, okay, are we implementing AI? What are our fears, policies around it? And so, Connor and I have started, stopped this podcast. And so thank you for helping us to bring this into our reality.
Of course. And I'm super excited to help with something that's kind of important and topical like AI. Jenna, you have been talking about digital transformation for a lot longer than consumers have been aware about AI and consumer AI and generative AI.
Yes.
You've been talking about it in business and how digital transformation works. And we kind of orbited each other. And I was actually working in a technology startup that did digital transformation work. And they were talking about you. And we knew, like, we
were in each other's
world
ecosystem.
And all of a sudden, those two things have collided. And I'm so glad to be working with you and your team in a multitude of ways.
Right back at you. And I mean, you talked about AI being very topical. As a business owner, what right now, when you think artificial intelligence, what's your first impression? What's coming to mind?
I think because of it being super topical, people are immediately coming to mind with ChatGPT.
ChatGPT?
Yeah. So we've been thinking a lot about that kind of consumer-facing thing, and that's what's kind of caused the conversation to come forward. But there's been a lot more that have been enabling us for a lot longer. But as that iteration came, generative AI specifically has been making the most impact in the creative space. And podcasting is a creative space. And so as a business owner, it's not necessarily the ChatGPT situation. It's more how it's changing the technology that we utilize to make podcasts, how it's changing the speed in which we can make reels and TikTok videos off of the podcasts. It's even how we utilize it within operations and business processes and systems and things like that.
Pretty interesting, just the wide use of applications there. But could you go into a little more detail about some more AI applications within your particular industry?
Yeah, like you mentioned the editing, for instance. Like to me, that's like, whoa. And again, like generative AI, there's so many different tools too that you can use. Like, are there certain applications that you've experimented with?
There's explosive growth in this space. And even one of our co-owners at Resonate owns a company called Resound, which is an AI editing platform for podcasts. So that software is listening to the podcast and detecting ahs and ums and helping you remove them. There are other softwares that have taken lots of market share, like the Script, and it even transforms it into text-based so that you can edit off of the text. And so when you have someone like me who would not consider themselves technical, all of a sudden you have these softwares that allow for this audio-based format to come into a text-looking thing and allow me to edit it even. And at Resonate, we don't use regular people to edit. We use it to augment our processes to make certain parts of this faster. But that consumer-facing technology that is made kind of for the hobbyist is actually transforming what we can do also in the professional side. Even Adobe has made significant AI improvements over the past couple of years. And when I should say months, it's like every single day we're having to update our softwares because they've implemented new technologies for us to be able to utilize to make our systems and processes faster. So if I wanted to go like into the specifics, right now we're sitting on a set. There's 3 cameras, 3 mics. All of those things are completely separate. We bring in those tracks. And now, because of the software, syncing up those audio and video tracks is a lot faster, but also switching from one to the next. So the audio being able to say, this is a new person, and doing the switching is allowing our video editors to save 2 and 3 hours of how they used to work. It doesn't mean that we don't still have to color grade or make sure that it doesn't do jump cuts too often and add that professional touch, but it is allowing what was taking us hours and hours of work to be faster. And that means that podcasting is becoming more accessible to small businesses and consumers.
I think there's a lot of talk around AI and machine learning replacing jobs. And to me, in that scenario, it's like, it's not replacing. You still need that human oversight. You mentioned the color grade shading. Correct me if I'm wrong. Color
that's
shading.
Good. I mean, we're both going to be like totally talking out of turn because I don't do any of those things.
Yeah. But, to be able to say, hey, something that used to take a team member of yours on payroll hours, and for that time to be cut in half, I'm sure the output production, right, probably increased for that person, or just where they're able to allocate their time and resources has completely shifted in a good way. They're not doing those, like, I want to say monotonous, but tasks that are
absolutely the monotonous part of the job. It's not even the creative part. It's just figuring out when to switch camera angle, right?
Yeah.
When I actually bought into Resonate and stepped in as CEO, I made a presentation to the team because there has been a decent amount of fear around AI replacing people's jobs like audio engineers or video editors. And that's just not really the case. The reality is there's always going to be people and businesses who don't have the time and capacity to figure out how this new technology and software works. We are going to be the experts at that, and it's going to make us more efficient, and it's going to make us better at our jobs, and we're going to be able to produce higher quality content faster. And so I made this presentation. It basically said, AI won't replace people. People with AI will replace people without AI. And I think that's something that we have to kind of embrace. Businesses with AI will replace businesses without AI.
It's powerful. I mean, that's the whole concept of why we wanted to do this podcast, because, we're passionate about small business owners, privately owned businesses, and they're oftentimes slower to adapt, partly because of resources, partly because of just dynamics. And so the education piece, being transparent, having owners on, them being able to listen and learn and educate themselves, and then hopefully be a practitioner of some of these tools, right? Like a ChatGPT. And then hopefully, if they can be a practitioner of that, they're going to better understand how AI can be very applicable on a macro level within their organization. Mm-hmm. So no, I love that quote. It's brilliant.
With the AI tools that you're currently using or just have experimented with, what would you identify as some of the greatest strengths and some of the greatest limitations or weaknesses of those tools?
Some of the strengths are some of those mundane, monotonous camera switching things. They're not all the way fantastic at like the generative like picture part. Like if you're making social media, we still really want it to be authentic photos at this point. Like that's just our philosophy. When we talk about things like show notes, we are not using AI to write our show notes yet. And I think a lot of people might give us pushback, or a lot of AI adopters would be like, why not? Why not? Or even you're lying, right?
No way.
And we actually have our VP of operation. We have sometimes been asked, and I think that now that this has been released into the world, anytime someone doesn't like something, they're like, that's AI. And so a couple of times we've had people ask if it was our show notes writers were using AI. And so our VP of operations would use another AI software, or another tool to determine whether or not AI had written it.
Really?
And every time it comes back like above 90% chance, sometimes even as much as 100 human written content. So I promise right now, all of our show notes are written by humans. And so we still might need to train the humans to know your stylistic preferences or choice, but it is currently written by humans because it just feels like it needs that human touch. And then I think even when we're talking about utilizing softwares that remove ums and ahs, it can be a little heavy-handed, right? Like humans say, I think I just did.
Or like, I say like a lot.
So we often need some of that for conversation to sound natural. And so it might help us identify it, but that doesn't mean that we're removing it automatically. It's allowing us to just make those decisions faster, hear it better, and move through some of those things.
Something I have looked into a little bit with creative AI kind of editing software is kind of the whole removing the ums and ahs and silences and bulk deletion. But one of the problems that came to mind for me was perhaps sometimes silences can actually be kind of good in some videos. Mm-hmm. And so that poses almost a challenge where it's like, do I want the AI to kind of go ahead and get rid of the silences? Or do I go through the whole video first and then say, okay, I need AI to do this, this, and that. And if it takes out this part, I need to put it back in. So I was just, from your standpoint, what would the process be for someone looking to sort of edit a video, but like, when would you have the AI come in?
A lot of times we're using it kind of actually on the front end. It's generating like those text-based scripts for us to be able to collaborate as teams better on it, so that some of our corporate clients, it needs to go through a chain of command. And this is allowing for us to make some things on the front end. And so
efficient.
It's helping those efficiency things. As far as like actually editing, I still think that ears need to be on it the whole way. It's just making what we do a little faster. And so you still have on our team a professional audio engineer listening to your whole episode and being able to maybe cut into those parts that AI is maybe suggesting might be removed if that audio engineer is choosing to use it. So right now, not all of our audio engineers choose to use it because some of them are faster still, but the ones that do choose to use it, they can cut to the parts that need to be looked at. It's bringing it to the audio engineer's attention. That doesn't mean that we're allowing it to actually remove it, because they want to hear and see, is that an impactful moment where actually we need a longer pause, not a shorter one. And our team often is, adding music to the background to help to create emotion or to emphasize some particular part of a show. And all of that still has to be a human. And when we get into like talking about true crime podcasting, human, period. Like it just needs too much love.
So true crime. I've never listened to this.
Okay.
I'm assuming that this is a podcast that Resonate Recordings
That's a whole
produces.
genre. That's so cute.
Okay. Yeah. How ridiculous am I? Yeah. So explain a little bit about that, what you just mentioned.
Okay. True crime is like a whole genre. It's like one of the biggest uses of podcasting. And it's how Resonate really got its beginning and its start was editing these really high-end true crime shows. Think about like former detectives and PIs and reporters who are going over cold cases normally or currently investigating cases, and they are laying it out in a story-based format. So it's very scripted, it's narrative, it's got lots
Emotional
of emotions
suspense.
And sound behind it. I can't handle it. I often have to, when I listen for spot checking or to better understand something that the team is telling me, I personally can't handle much true crime. And one night I was listening to it on the way to playing volleyball, and it was late at night, and I had to turn it off because I couldn't handle it. It was too scary.
Yeah,
but
like,
lots
I'll
of
just
people
turn on the news.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Lots of people love this style of podcasting, and it's extremely creative.
Mhm.
And so right now that just has to be done by not just audio engineers, but composers and other things like that.
Humans. And I mean, Connor, we talk about this a lot. AI doesn't understand emotions, right? It can't feel emotions. And so that feeling you get when you have goosebumps because it's that suspenseful story that you're listening to. I don't even know if AI can create that because it doesn't have that human consciousness. It's never been scared. It's never experienced those emotions.
Yeah, you could probably tell AI that you want music tracks, maybe even created, but at least music tracks to be pulled that are from that genre to help you as a starting point. But it isn't going to be the same as that human ear listening and knowing that inflection needed to be highlighted with something.
Exactly.
And matching the build of the music up to that exact moment that it needs to be built to. It's not there yet. When we talk about AI and audio editing and stuff, they're using real edits from real humans, real audio engineers, sometimes on our own team, to inform the machine learning models for the software to be able to continue to understand what it should be editing and what it shouldn't be. So that is a process that is constantly being utilized to help learn for those machine learning models.
Are there other specific applications for AI within kind of a creative editing role?
Yeah, I know we've talked about some of them, but I think that there are some that are really crazy and being extremely helpful. One is like voice or words correction. You know, it's starting to, you can teach it to learn your voice. So if I gave you a quote right now and I said something like 78% of senior executives listen to podcasts weekly. Well, if I'm wrong about it being 78, which I know the stat, it's somewhere in that range, but you could come over correct or overdub my voice so that you could correct the thing in post-production, right? And so that's an audio-based edit that can help people not, if they've messed something up, you don't have to just cut the whole really good quote, but we could fix the tiny mistake, right?
That's incredible.
It's not exactly working in video yet, but we're probably not far off of that, right? Like you can change the way the words sound, but you couldn't change the mouth.
Uh-huh.
Another application is you can actually correct eye contact. So a lot of podcasts are recording on Zoom or a Zoom-like platform like Riverside or some of these other ones, and they all have really neat AI software features really building into them. And so say someone's looking at their screen instead of their camera, and that eye, you can tell that the eye angle is just a little off. Right now, with a click of a button, they can actually fix where the eye's focus is to where it looks like it's at the camera instead of at the screen.
That's so cool.
So there's all kinds of applications that's coming out in the editing space. There's really powerful mixing and mastering softwares that allow for leveling out sound and kind of helping bring forward while quieting the background. That's all utilizing new AI software or technology that is making the editor's job more efficient in some of the processes that might have taken a very long time to pull off before. It's making it more efficient. It's making the product more quality. It's helping us when we make mistakes in our speech to just make the whole thing a lot smoother.
That's incredible. And Resonate is utilizing some of this as well.
Yeah, and it depends on the client and the use case and the level of production that they're choosing. We absolutely still have an audio engineer or a video editor looking at every single second. It's making their job more efficient and faster. It's not being done by AI.
Sure.
It is augmenting what they do. It is helping what they do and actually making mistakes that we make sitting here talking. We tell people we can only make it as good as the quality that we have coming in, right? That's not going to be true forever. So that's wild. Like one time we had a client who recorded a whole podcast, sounded great. She wanted it in video and it was on her lap. And so the video was jiggly and we can't fix that. Maybe one day we will be able to, right? But that's not something that post-production can fix. We have to have that quality coming in. More and more of those little things are being able to be fixed. Now, I still advocate that you use good mics and that you don't just rely on the audio team and good software to be able to fix everything, but it is starting to help with the quality in some areas. That's when humans make errors, it can help undo some of those errors.
Thank goodness.
As far as other creative avenues for AI within podcasting, one of the huge announcements that was made recently in generative AI is OpenAI's Sora, the video generating AI. What role do you see that playing within the video podcast realm?
I think that we're all still kind of seeing how things play out. I do think that it presents an opportunity for things like B-roll and some of the more tedious processes to be made easier. If you pull out to the top level, we talk about podcasting as being like a meaningful content engine. And you use this one long form piece of content that brings a lot of value. And then you create other pieces of content kind of pointing people back to the long form. And so you take this one long form and you might create 4 reels and TikToks off of it, or, videograms that then can be used in Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn
Shorts.
and wherever, YouTube Shorts. And you're basically feeding this engine that allows you to get a bigger reach, right? But those are just like the little snippets. Oftentimes we'll get somebody to bring us something that's like really heavily edited. It's got a lot of like little cut-in graphics or whatever they're talking about. It has quite a bit of video editing. And I think that the generative AI in that way will be able to help us supplement and help us create some of those things that right now would take too long to do and too expensive for the average person who's coming to us for videograms. And so people don't really quite realize how hard that little 10-second video that you saw on Instagram was if it had all kinds of graphics and all kinds of pictures that laid over it, right? Like that took somebody literally
Hours.
cutting that out.
Yeah.
Generative AI is making those processes, those things take a lot less time. So right now, only the biggest podcasters with really nice budgets and full-time video editors on their team might be able to pull off that level of quality and intenseness, because it's just like a lot of editing. Whereas that's going to be more and more and more available as generative AI continues to make those things easier for the team.
Brad, your husband, probably more creative. You can kind of get something started, but then you need him to kind of tweak it. And I feel like this is, at least for Sora, is a great opportunity for someone who, okay, I have it in my head, right? But here's my like first pass at it and getting it like a tangible video, right? That again, probably couldn't have been able to create without a platform like Sora, just from a technical capability. And then maybe they don't see themselves as a true, quote, creative. But these are tools that then anybody can be using to create their B-roll, or to at least be able to say, hey, here's what I got started. Can you take this and make it better?
Yeah.
Right.
What you're making me think about is like this concept of allowing us to connect and communicate better, right? Sometimes we struggle with words, right? Like we struggle with the words that we're wanting to say. We're struggling to tell someone the vision that's in our brains. And these tools might allow us to actually connect deeper and communicate better. And so, yes, there's like the negative side of it, but there is the good side of it too, allowing us to get that first pass out, allowing us to get that first draft, allowing us to help explain what has been a relatively frustrating thing. Right now, I have a almost 2-year-old and he doesn't talk very much. He doesn't, his words are a little delayed. And he gets so frustrated because he can understand what we're saying. He just can't tell us what he's saying. We all have felt that even in our adult lives of wanting to be able to communicate something and not being able to. To your point, you can use tools to help even show the person your vision that needs to be able to execute it. So, hey, this is what I'm thinking.
Great analogy.
And they'll be able to take it to your ads and make it better. So often I get a first draft out. I might draw it on paper or use a tool like Canva, which has a lot of AI embedded into it now. And then someone that is a professional can actually make it look amazing because they now can see the vision, but they know how to apply true design principle to it.
They take it to another level.
Yeah.
One of the things that's stood out to me is just the whole question of whether, how far it'll actually go. Because I do think there will still be a need for actually shooting videos with human beings, partially because I don't think we'll be able to automatically generate video of ourselves. Like if I wanted to go to...
I hope not.
Yeah.
I know we'll get there eventually, but yeah.
Because of the possible libel and defamation kind of issues there. But I kind of just want to put that out there is that we're probably not going to have that kind of technology publicly available where we'll be able to just, it's like, all right, instead of just setting up a day to shoot a podcast, we'll just generate it and hopefully it'll look all right. I doubt that'll ever be available. But that brings to mind for me just the idea of AI having limits and how we talked about taste earlier and how it can't always get it right. So what parts within your industry do you think there will always need to be human oversight or even just fully human work in certain roles or just for certain tasks?
I think that humans have to producing podcasts, helping people, the management, the structure, the coming up with the ideas themselves, the scheduling parts of how all this comes together, but also like we do script writing. AI might give a first draft, right? But it's got limits. And I think the reason why we will always have video in person and the reason why we will need people is we crave authenticity. And by its nature, it is not authentic. It is artificial.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a level of that authenticity that humans will have to have oversight of. And I think that's true, whether that is like helping other people produce and bring their visions to life, or that is being able to oversee how it sounds. And does that sound authentic? Does it sound like the personality of the person speaking? Those areas of humanness can't be completely done by AI. We talk about me being like fully my own human self. Like I'm Ellie, like that is like I'm tall and loud and say things that I probably shouldn't say, and not necessarily inappropriate. It's just like I say exactly everything that's in my brain all the time. And so I think you would lose a little bit of that. Like I actually used a company who obviously used AI. They weren't even like, it was with permission, but they were based in India. They used AI to do some LinkedIn for me to help me become a LinkedIn Thought leader. Yeah. You can go and immediately pick out what parts were not me. I actually had to cut it off because it was way too formal. It wasn't me. It was.
And people that know you would be like, she wrote that?
Yes. I actually had someone text me and they were like, that was a great post, but was it you? And I was like, no, it was not. And I actually had to take it down because then I was embarrassed that it was that obvious that it wasn't me. And so, yeah, I think that there's some part of that personality wise that I even couldn't outsource to anyone, right? Like, because it's who I am. It's authentically me.
I want to commend you because you did try, right?
Yeah.
And I think an experiment. And I think that there's a lot of business owners right now, probably even listening, where they don't know where to start. So obviously you're in it. You all are using it for editing. But from a day-to-day standpoint, what was your first step into using AI for yourself or Ellie? Was it ChatGPT?
I think it was probably Siri.
Siri.
It's probably before I even consciously realized that it was AI. And, asking it for directions or telling it to remind me of something when I walked into the house or, creating even within Gmail, making sure that it reminds me to do something. There is functions of if this, then that kind of machine learning things that have lived for far longer than what we've been talking about AI.
I agree.
And I think it's just become hot and sexy recently to the general masses. We're moving beyond pioneers into the early adopters, Now it's a conversation. While I have lived my entire career in innovation and in highly technical worlds, I wouldn't necessarily call me an immediate early adopter of all technology. I think I'm on the earlier end, and that's been a function of who I've been around and how I've gotten to see other people use it. But I think that there's a lot of room for my own growth in what I could be doing with it. Today, I got to listen to you have a different conversation, and they said that accounting was something that they were thinking would have a lot of application. And so I was like, oh my goodness, could it do my forecasting? These tasks that have been kind of nagging me, could it do these things? And so it's got to just start with kind of a question, but it's also habit creating, and there's so many things that I feel like it could help me with in our life. I'm a mom of 2 small children. I run a business. My life is a little hectic at the moment, and there's probably more that I could be doing to fold it in. And even as someone who's probably on the earlier half, admittedly could be doing a better job. And so it's just taking enough time to know that if I explore, there's a new one called Shelp or something like that. And it's supposed to be for people with ADHD. And it reminds you to do things that seem like basic tasks, but it's an AI that kind of helps walk with you through your day so that you remember to do things. And I've been thinking about should I try that so that I don't get day blind and forget to drink and eat? Those kinds of things that happen to founders and owners all the time.
Totally.
And it's should I actually have it remind me to do these things? I'm just implementing it, and then it takes some time. And so kind of getting over that fear, trying, and then figuring out how to slowly implement it into my daily life.
Yeah.
I use it all the time, but being more intentional.
Yeah. And just you experimented, with another firm or with outsourcing something. Hey, it didn't work. But you learned something through that process, and now you can change ways. I think a lot of owners are sitting there, kind of, I don't want to say frozen, but just sitting still and not spending 15 minutes a day just asking ChatGPT questions. Or, you talk about Gmail, there's things you can turn on that will, remind you that you haven't responded to an email in the last 5 days. And so certain things
that is so helpful.
Oh my gosh, I know. And so I think just like you mentioned, hey, it's creating habits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so often we can say, yes, we want to implement this. Yes, I want to go to the gym 4 times a week, right? Yes, I want to do this, those New Year's resolutions. But having that resolution and then actually creating that habit to utilize this technology in your day-to-day life, I think is really important for business owners, because the more they can be practitioners, then they're going to be better understand how this can apply to their operations and to their business moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. As consumers, if we learn how to, it's become more accessible, therefore the fear on it's coming down. If you learn how to just use it, all of a sudden you can start thinking of all these other ways that it could make things more efficient.
Yeah.
I've read this Free to Focus book a couple of times. The author is Michael Hyatt. I use the planner from them, and I really like it. It's helped me a lot. But in the book, he was talking about how often he uses these key commands to write emails, which was the key command thing was before the AI thing. However, Superhuman is a email software that functions off of this AI plus key command thing. And I have known for probably a year how much I want to learn it, but I haven't yet. And and now it's even integrated within Gmail. And so it's like, I know that if I just take the time to learn how this works and implement some of these key commands, it could automate a lot of these repetitive emails for me and repetitive tasks. And it's just about like actually disciplining yourself for long enough to go figure it out. And yeah, I think it can make my life a lot even better than it is now. And so for me, I'm always looking at how do I make things better, faster, easier, those kinds of things for our life. And I still have room to grow.
Well, and I love the quote where AI won't replace humans, but companies that are using AI will replace companies who aren't or without it. And it's, ChatGPT creating this kind of sexy buzz within AI in 2022. Well, this has been around for a long time, but every year that goes by that we don't build on these habits and owners don't, kind of ignore, right, how this could be applicable, they're only getting farther behind the owners that are truly using it, not just from their own consumer side, but then figuring out ways that they can implement it, to your point, whether it's accounting or predictive forecasting, modeling. So it's just getting started. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, making a shameless plug about AI and podcasting with generative AI and Google.
Oh, yeah.
I learned this from you, Jenna, so you should probably be the one who explains it better. But,
very timely.
It is, I think that I have a hope. So I'm going to lay my own and let you explain it, that as the models are searching now audio and video better, then as they continue for SEO purposes to basically bring audio and video formats to
the search engine. Search results.
As they bring that forward, I hope that it kind of can tell what is authentic and what is human and bring that before it brings the other AI generated content. And so with podcasting, we know that this increase of searching and listening or watching your results is just tremendously increased and is going to continue to increase. Having podcasts actually is going to be helping your SEO.
Google's continually changing, but one of the things that hasn't changed is their algorithm of relevancy. And they want to make sure, just like picture a librarian, if Google's the librarian, when Ellie comes and she asks for something, meaning she searches for something, that I deliver the most relevant results to Ellie. Well, human nature, right? More often than ever, we want to see a video or we want to listen to something. You were talking about using voice search. Those generative AI being infused within the search engine, there's a huge recognition that if I do a search right now, the results that will populate HTML, so the amount of websites, far exceed the amount of content for video and audio. And that is something that if I'm a librarian and people are coming to me and saying, hey, I want this book, hey, I want this, hey, I want this, and I don't have a lot of results, I'm obviously going to reward you, right, Google, for giving me content that I need and I'm in short supply of. And so I always, if you go and you search for something on Google, at the top, you'll see news, images, video, all of that. If you go and see the actual search results for the actual search results, HTML, only like millions of sites that you're competing with. And then if you click on like video, it'll be like less than 100,000. And so with generative AI being infused, I think, one, you're correct. I think you're going to see Google and search engines alike weighting video and audio for SEO results higher. You're going to quickly rank for those types of content pieces. And then also Google just literally a couple of weeks ago basically rolled out that websites that are being created that are fully just all AI, no human element, whether it was all the content that was created via AI or, using DALL-E and uploading images, they aren't ranking those sites. So it is truly positioning authentic human content to be able to rank versus AI generated. I do think part of that, my theory is A, legislation, right? But two, I don't think that they fully, they don't want that, right? Like you don't want to see all of the first ranking sites be AI generated without the human touch for all the reasons that we just noted.
It ties into kind of just the importance of experience, expertise, authority, trustworthiness. What was
Relevancy.
this? EAT.
Oh, EAT. Yeah, there we
is
go.
kind of the acronym for what Google's search algorithm wants. So if you're kind of relying on AI generated content, and if that generated content is watermarked, meaning Google's search algorithm can immediately recognize it that, hey, that was made by AI. There's sort of the idea behind that is it could have just been anybody, like a 12-year-old could have generated this article about like the common cold and how to treat it and put it onto Healthline. That's why they kind of have, let's make sure that it's written and reviewed by medical professionals. So that's kind of why human content will be much more likely to rank better than AI generated content or just purely AI generated content.
And I think that goes too to people who are like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast tomorrow and all my show notes and everything is going to be, AI generated. Google is pretty intelligent. There's machine learning built in there. So it's going to recognize that. And that's where if Resonate's using, it's human and you're using tools to test, obviously, for that authenticity. I mean, you should see better results from an SEO perspective.
And I think that we believe that part of our mission is to bring meaningful content to help businesses or organizations or thought leaders or subject matter experts to bring that mission and their meaning to the world. And so that's part of kind of what we're trying to do, right? Is we want your voice to be heard. We want your content to be seen. The world is ever more noisy. And so by utilizing a podcast and utilizing this long form, you can build value and trust and all those things that somehow make the word eat.
Yeah.
That we can build those things actually through the method of podcasting. It will also help your SEO. It will also have all these business, really tangible things that will fill the content engine. It'll help you make your newsletter. But at the end of the day, the reason why people do it is because they have a mission that they want to be heard. They have a product that they want to sell. They have a vision that needs to be known. And so we want to help you actually accomplish that very real goal, which is whatever your goal is. For you, it might be, helping people understand AI and digital marketing. And for someone else, it might, we have a new client that, is really helping women through menopause. We want to help that be seen and heard in a world full of noise.
I mean, just from a real estate standpoint, right? Where's the attention? There's, yes, people searching on Google, but I mean, I know I can count right now. There's so many leaders that I know that listen to podcasts daily in a whole mix of different content and then also video, right? So, I might not be watching it as I'm driving, but I went to YouTube and I'm listening, but I'm actually, quote, pressing play. And so these, if you think about it in the whole digital world, these are new real estate avenues for B2B and B2C companies to play in. And I think to bring this full circle with AI, it's been difficult. I think obviously expensive. And then I think just time-wise hard to be in all of these places, these real estate, right? So filming video as a business owner, podcast, social media, creating that content, writing blog content for your website. And I do think AI, especially generative AI, is going to help owners do more with the same amount of time and be able to be more visible and share that story or that vision, whatever that goal is, on more platforms for using that same amount of time. So the efficiency side is, I think, exciting.
Absolutely.
So something that AI is really good about is just creating predictions. Even like ChatGPT, when it offers the text, that's all founded on a prediction of what words are related to the prompt that it was given. And here's, I'm just predicting that this word should go after that word, after that word, after that word. What would you like AI to predict within your company that could help your operations?
I would really like it to be able to help us better predict audiences, which is not necessarily about our business as much as it is about our clients' businesses. But podcasting analytics still has a long way to go when you think about what data is available to you all in digital marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason why we love watching people use the content engine is because it really can help your business grow. It is also because outside of the podcast platform, we have a lot of good data, right? And so you can see how many impressions, watched a reel. We know how many listens and we know some of these other things, but there's still a lot to be developed in that way. And I think that hopefully AI can help on some of the predictive side of that rather than what's already happened. But how do we get in front of the right audiences who are looking for this information? I think we're seeing some of that come along, but there's more to be done on before you've even created the show, before it's actually out there. I think that there's stuff there that could be really grown and helping us shape what people really want to know about and want to be educated on and the methods in which they want to receive their information.
There's an AI service. Well, it's just kind of a category of AI service. It's kind of just called persona modeling. That kind of does what you're talking about, where it can just identify almost like a customer base, or in this context, like an audience, and kind of divide it up into sort of like, okay, what are the different types of people that are within this audience segment? And so you can kind of identify, okay, what is this person like? What does this person want to hear, want to see, that sort of thing, and just sort of find within a potential podcast audience what would be called cognitive insights, basically just behavior-wise, what are they drawn to within content.
Yeah. And I mean, podcast advertising has been wildly successful because people listen to it on the long form. People are less likely to fast forward through it, maybe because they're driving or whatever, but they tend to take the recommendations and the ads from show hosts a lot more seriously. And it does drive buying decisions at a far greater rate than just watching a commercial or even an ad on Instagram. Like the data around that is actually very, very strong. And so being able to continue to hone it all in and make it work, as well as this is still a relatively new medium in time.
To your point, they pass the brand credibility off to the advertiser. I mean, I think about Tim Ferriss because mushroom coffee I heard about from him. And it's like, oh, well, if Tim is, using this.
A number of things I have bought
of course. Yeah.
They joke that I'm like the advertiser's dream. And I'm like, I want to teach it what I want to see. I would rather I don't want to see these things. I don't need to see a Viagra commercial. I'm a 30-something-year-old woman. But I'm happy to get ads for the bag or the shoes from Rothy's or the,
yes, give me something relevant.
On. Yeah.
Yes, I need that. Of course. Thank you. Yeah. Well, Ellie, this has been very insightful. Thank you again for coming on the show. What are some last words that you would, or I guess pieces of advice you would leave to the audience?
In my nature as a human, I'm a trier. And in your point is, as business owners and in people in general, instead of being resistant, just try. Just be open with your mindset and have that growth mindset instead of having the resistance, and just check your resistance for a second and see how it can improve yourself, your business, make you more efficient. There's not a lot to gain in the resistance game. There's just not. And so just be more open and give it a try and start small, but see what's out there and see how you can implement it and have an open mind.
What I always find fascinating about human behavior is that usually the people that are demonizing the platform are usually the ones that are still on it and using it to escape everyday life. So it's like they don't post, they bash people that are, yet they are very much still consuming it. So it's okay. So I think it's funny. The same holds true with AI. Try it. Just try it.
Yes.
Before you are quick to be doom and gloom about it. So Ellie, how can our listeners connect with you?
You can find us at resonaterecordings.com or hello@resonaterecordings.com. I do get that email into my inbox, and so does the rest of the team.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for coming on the show, and thank you to Resonate so that the show can actually happen and make it to our listeners.
Of course. I'm so excited that you're doing this.
Thank you for listening to Go AI. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and review our podcast so we can continue to grow and offer more great AI content. If you're looking for digital marketing, digital transformation, or AI help, make sure you visit www.guardianowdigital.com. Have questions? Email team@guardianldigital.com for answers. See you next time on Go AI.